Hey everyone, today we are going to talk about how to multiply more than two fractions. You can see in all of my examples that there are 5 fractions. Part C has 3 fractions, Part D has 7 fractions, and we're going to do this with cross-canceling. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for any values that match on both the top and the bottom. We're going to call these presents. Because sometimes you're given presents, things that are simple, things that we can cancel out right away. So I'm going to go through each of my fractions. It doesn't matter which order I cancel in as long as something is canceled from the top and the bottom. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to cancel these 4s and make them into 1s. Then I'm going to look at, do I have any numbers that I can put into pairs that cancel out a number on top? For example, 3 and 2 on the bottom. 3 times 2 makes 6. So this 3 and this 2 are going to cancel with this 6. And that's all going to become a 1. Then with what I've got left after that, because nothing else works out quite that way, then what I'm going to do with what I have left is I'm just going to do my normal cross-canceling. So I'm going to say, does anything go with anything else that's left? So for me, I'm going to look at the 3 and the 9. So the 3 is going to become a 1. The 9 is going to become a 3. And then I've got 5 and 10. So 1 and 2. And then the 12 didn't cancel with anything. So I'm just going to keep that the same for now. And I'm going to rewrite my information. So I've got 12 and then a bunch of 1s on top. And then I've got 3. And then 2 on the bottom. And the last thing that I have to do is I have to make sure that everything has been cross-canceled that can possibly be cross-canceled. Now on the bottom, I know that 3 times 2 is 6. And I've got a 12 on top. So 3 times 2 is 6 is going to cancel with the 6 that goes into 12 on the top. So this is going to become a 1, this is going to become a 1, and this is going to become a 2 because 12 divided by 6 is 2. So now I've got a 2 on top times a bunch of 1s, that's going to be 2, and then I've got a bunch of 1s on the bottom, which is going to be 1. So my final answer here is going to be 2 over 1. Or 2. Okay, in part B, same thing. The first thing I'm going to look for is anything that can cancel right away. So those presents, what can I get rid of without having to do too much work? In this one, there's 2 4s on the bottom and a 4 on top. It's a 1-for-1 trade. So I'm going to cancel 1 4 with another 4. And then I've also got 3s that can cancel. So 1 here and 1 here. Now I'm going to look for those things that, can I multiply 2 of these things together to make one of the numbers on the bottom? And I can, and then I've got 12s, sorry. So I've got to cancel these 12s first. Got a little ahead of myself. Now I'm going to look at, is there anything on top that multiplies to make anything on the bottom? So 6 times 2 is 12. And then 8 times 4 is 32, so nothing happens there. So I'm going to look at just my regular cross-canceling. Can I take any of these numbers and divide anything out to simplify these numbers? So 6 and 8 have a 2 in common. And 2 and 4 have a 2 in common. And then when I rewrite all of my circled numbers, there's nothing up and down that can cancel, and there's no other diagonals that can cancel either. So in part A, those numbers were separated. One was the beginning, one was the end on the bottom, but they still could cancel or go into the number on the top. So we could still cancel them. Here, the 3 does not go with the 4 or the 2, so I just have to finish my multiplication. 3 on top and then 8 on the bottom. In part C, I've got some mixed numbers. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 3 is 11 over 4. I'm going to change it to an improper fraction. 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3 over 2. 2 times 11 is 22, plus 2 is 24 over 11. I can't do any canceling with mixed numbers until they are improper fractions. That's super important. You cannot do any cross canceling until they are improper fractions. So now I'm going to look for those presents, which ones are the same on both the top and the bottom right away. So 11 and 11 are going to go away and become 1s. Okay, if I do 11 divided by 11, that's 1. And then I'm going to look for, can I make any numbers that are on the top and the bottom? So 4 times 2 is 8. There's no 8s on top. 3 times 24 is 72. There's no 72s on the bottom. But the 4 times 2 is 8 does go into 24. So I can cancel that way. So I can do 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 goes into 24 3 times. And then I've got this 3 left over on top that doesn't cancel with anything. So on top, I've got 1 times 3 times 3. And then the bottom is 1 times 1 times 1. So I get 9 over 1 or 9. Either answer here would be correct. Same thing up here. If you just gave me 2, that would also be correct. All right, last one. We're going to look for those numbers that cancel out right away first, those presents, which ones are the same on both the top and the bottom. So I see a 3. I see a 4. I see a 2. And that's it so far for all the numbers that cancel out right away. Then I'm going to look at, can I do anything where a combination of numbers would cancel out something on the bottom? And on top, I see these 2 3s. So 3 times 3 is 9, and look at that, I have a 9 on the bottom. So I'm going to cancel those. 1, 1, and 1. When I get things down to 1s, it just makes my life a lot easier because that multiplication gets a little bit easier. Now when I look at the numbers that I have left, 8 times 8 is 64. That doesn't do anything for numbers on the bottom. And then 5, 12, and 4, again, nothing is going to happen where I can combine things. So now I'm going to look at my just regular cross-canceling. What numbers can I put together? I know that 8 and 12 have a 4 in common, so this becomes a 2, and this becomes a 3. And then I've got an 8 and a 4 here, so I'm going to do this is a 2 and this is a 1. And then I don't want to forget that I didn't do anything to this 5, but it's still there. So on top, I've got 1 times 1 times 2 times 1 times 2 times 1 times 1. And then I've got 1 times 5 times 1 times 1 times 3 times 1 times 1. Now I've chosen to include all of the values that I circled, everything that I canceled, and all of that stuff. And the number of numbers on the top and the bottom should match the number of fractions that you have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fractions. I should have 7 numbers on the top and 7 numbers on the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm going to do my one last up and down check. Does anything else cancel that I didn't do already? So the 2s on top do not go with the 5 or the 3 on the bottom. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 5 times 3 is 15. And that is how you multiply more than 2 fractions. I gave you a couple of shortcuts to kind of help you out with that. So being able to get rid of those presents right away, which ones are the same on both the top and the bottom. It is a 1-for-1 trade. Okay, so 1 on the top for 1 on the bottom. Then I can look for, does any combination of numbers on top cancel with anything on the bottom? If I can make those numbers be the same, even better. So like 3 times 3 is 9, 6 times 2 is 12, 3 times 4 is 12, things like that. And then I'm going to just do my regular cross-canceling to simplify any other remaining numbers. And then I rewrite my numbers, do one more check. Does everything simplify before I multiply? And then I give my final answer.